大家好，我是 All Branch 的 Alan. So you might have seen some of our earlier videos on the benefits of intermittent fasting, and you want to try it yourself. We suggested that skipping breakfast is probably the easiest meal to skip, but you're unsure whether it's healthy for you or not. Breakfast is, after all, the most important meal of the day, as the saying goes. I'm going to go over some common myths, dig deep into the science about eating breakfast and not eating science to see whether it is good for you or not. I'm going to cover 3 common myths that are constantly mentioned, and that is 1, if I don't eat breakfast, it's going to hurt my stomach. Number 2 is that if I eat breakfast, I won't be as hungry during the day, and so I'll eat less calories throughout the day. Thereby, I'll have less intake of calories overall. And number 3, the saying that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Okay, so myth number 1 is that people think that it might harm the stomach if you don't eat anything in the morning, and that's because they might feel like the stomach acid that's in there originally might actually start to burn the stomach lining. And so this is actually a myth because your body creates the acid, but it also has the defense for that acid, so it doesn't naturally burn itself. And that's a mucous membrane that covers the inside lining of the stomach. It's a mucous membrane, it's a bicarbonate, so it neutralizes the acid. Furthermore, when you eat, that's actually when your body starts to create more of the acid to help digest the food. If you're not eating, it won't create so much acid, and so it's well protected. The only problem that arises is if there's a bacterial infection that affects the mucous membrane and that may thin it out. Thereby, the acid there will eventually penetrate, causing some burn known as ulcers. The second myth says that by eating breakfast, you'll be actually consuming less calories throughout the day, and that's because you're not as hungry after eating breakfast, and so your lunches and dinners will be smaller. But according to this meta-analysis, where they actually compared people who eat breakfast and people who don't eat breakfast, it actually showed that their weight has no difference in terms of weight gain or not. This other randomized control trial showed that, in fact, people who don't eat breakfast normally and then are forced to eat breakfast, they actually gained much more calories than they normally would not have eaten breakfast, and they actually gain more fat as well. Another point that's actually related to this is that people who tend to eat a healthy breakfast and exercise and claim that they are losing fat, they're actually part of this selection bias, a cognitive flaw that we have when we're talking to people, and it's that of a healthy user bias, or the healthy user effect. And they're basically people who are actually already quite healthy lifestyles, and by eating a healthy breakfast, they already want to exercise, they are living a healthy lifestyle in general, and so obviously they're going to be a healthier people and losing fat. Versus people who are eating breakfast but are of the lower quality kind. They might be actually gaining fat, but you don't actually hear those stories. And so there is a bias in the stories that you're hearing, which is caused by the healthy user effect. So a lot of people who actually claim that eating breakfast is a healthy thing is because they cite certain studies that show that people with type 2 diabetes who skip breakfast have increased blood sugar levels. Or that if they are following the circadian rhythm, it actually does show that people are insulin sensitive in the morning and it tapers off at night. And so it makes sense to have breakfast and to have a smaller dinner. And if you skip breakfast and have a bigger dinner, it works counter to that. And so these studies, although have shown to be true, the problem with them is that they never gave the subjects time to adjust to skipping breakfast. And they realize that actually the body does take some adaptation before it can get used to skipping breakfast, and then it finds its own baseline again. And so if you suddenly change eating breakfast or skipping breakfast, it does actually show up as a stressor into the body. So the last myth, the phrase that breakfast being the most important meal of the day, a phrase that almost every country also shares, is actually based on this phrase coined in the 1970s by John Harvey Kellogg. The same Kellogg as the cereal brand that's actually known for all these other American cereal brands that are very high in carbohydrates. So this very, very well-known phrase is actually not coined by a doctor or a scientific researcher, but in fact coined by a marketing term by the founder of a big cereal brand industry. So that's it, guys. If you are starting to begin an intermittent fasting program, but you are concerned about skipping breakfast, well, now you can rest assured that by eliminating breakfast from your days, that you won't harm your body. In fact, it's actually very good for your body, and is a very good step in beginning your fasting journey. Hope you found that useful, and as always, please leave any questions or comments below, and I'll see you next time.